Okay, my friends, so as I spoke, Dr. Berg, I am seeing him as a researcher and a resource because he's got some very, very good information. However, this is a new organ system discovered just recently, 2018, and I feel that it needs a real deep research dive here because, in my opinion, this layer right here, which is called the interstitium, which is the fluid-filled highway that carries all the things through your body that are the enzymes, primarily the enzymes. And enzymes are a product of bacteria. Bacteria creates them. Without the bacteria, you don't get the enzyme. Without the enzyme, you cannot do this. It's a catalyst. It's a very, very rapid molecular destruction or break down foods or kill enemies. It's an instantaneous reaction, very, very, very complicated. And the enzymes are the key to literally all the chemistry that happens in your body. Now, from the research I have done, I see virtually all diseases, including cancer, autism, virtually every disease is an invasion through the membrane that surrounds that particular organ or the nerve or whatever it is. If it gets invaded, it gets damaged, it gets destroyed. And these other bacteria will invade it and start living in there and growing these big tumors. And then you die. And that's what cancer is, and so is irritable bowel syndrome, all that stuff. That's my opinion based on the research. Now let's look at what well, here's this. Let me just show you something. This is the interstitium now, and it's, like I say, a newfound organ in 2018, and they say now it is the largest organ in the human body. And here's what it looks like up close and personal. All right, this layer right here is the fluid-filled highway. That is where everything flows through there. All of these enzymes and the lymph and all that stuff. It's a very dynamic space, and that it separates this stuff, which is, let's say, your good growing tissue, from this stuff, which is the membrane that coats it, that says, okay, all you bad guys stay out. I got 1,000,000 layers in here to keep you out, but if you penetrate through them and then you break through this fluid-filled highway, then you're going to be eating the flesh, and then that's a tumor. Right, so don't forget, this is my claim that interstitium layer, once you break through that, that is where all your invasive diseases are. I don't care what it is, cancer, all that stuff. Now, so this is the layer we're talking about. Now let's look at what cancer actually looks like as it penetrates that layer. And here it is right here. This is a cancer tumor. And it penetrates all these layers. Remember I showed you all those layers, layer. Well, it gets through all those, and then it gets through that last one, which is the interstitium layer. And now you're penetrated. Now you got your damage. And that's the interstitium. And again, they didn't realize this was this fluid-filled highway, because by the time they did the autopsies, it was flat and hard. They thought it was just a very hard, flat sheet. And this only goes back a couple of years now. All right, so this is a tumor, and that broke through the interstitial layer down here, which is the fluid-filled highway. Up here, this stuff is supposed to be able to get banged around a little bit and invaded a little bit, but these guys are supposed to send troops out to stop it from coming through. Well, if you don't have any troops in here to send out, it just keeps nibbling away, and eventually it goes into your good tissue. That's when you got your issues. All right, so what you just saw is this: invasion, and then these guys are supposed to send troops out to stop the invasion halfway down here or wherever, close as they can get to the surface. But if they get way down in here, these are supposed to fight back. Well, if you have nobody to fight back, that's when they grow down here, and that's where you get your tumors. Okay, I don't know if I'm right or wrong here, but I can tell you what. This is basically the skin or the membrane, outer layer of the membrane. You can get this invaded. It's always going to be attacked. It's continuously under attack. But the guys that live in here should have have troops that go out there and stop the attack. Now, if it keeps nibbling and nibbling and nibbling and nibbling through all these different layers, and there are literally hundreds of layers here, if it gets down to this layer and there's nobody to stop it, well, you're in trouble because it's going to break through. Now, what all these little balls are, I'm not 100% sure, but they do show up almost like they're the troops that attack the invading bacteria, because that's how they show it. Now, I don't know if it's right or not, but you see how they're showing all these balls as the barrier trying to keep these invading bacteria out? Well, I don't know. It looks like it to me, but again, this is not, I can't be sure of this. This is what research is all about. But they show it here again. They show these, the little bally looking things, and then they show the invaders, the superbugs. Now, how do you keep them out? And do some people not get affected by these superbugs? This is what research is. Who is getting invaded and who's not getting invaded? Then you do the chemistry on the two people, and you figure out if you have enough database, which is what we're working on today, is a database to find out what bacteria live in people's body. If you don't know what bacteria is there, you won't be able to create the enzymes. The enzymes, in other words, the bacteria, here's the way it works. Let me just start from the beginning. How the bacteria, which lives in you, and these are your immune cells, basically. They are the things that produce the enzymes, which create the chemistry that does 100% of biological activity. Nothing can go as fast as these catalysts to break down these molecules and do this extremely elegant chemistry other than an enzyme. And an enzyme is not some just little piece of nothing. This is what an enzyme is. And they have to be exactly identical every single time or they don't work. So, and there's hundreds of thousands, literally, of enzymes in you because there are thousands and thousands of bacteria, and every one of them has DNA inside of it that says, I'm going to make an enzyme that looks exactly like that, and I'm going to squirt them out all day long. And that's all they do. And then other ones, bacteria, will also say, I am going to eat things, and here's the program that I'm going to eat, right? Which is flesh, dead flesh. It's called apoptosis, where it's a programmed cell death. They can look and see the signature of a cell dying, and then they go and consume it. All right, you don't want them consuming your good flesh, so they have to know when is that thing programmed to die, and I will read that program, and I'll go eat it up and bring it over into the lymph nodes and dump it out of here. Okay, everybody alive is saturated with bacteria. Now, they live inside of you, on you, in your eyeballs. Every single place in your whole body is saturated with bacteria. Now, what does the bacteria do? These are single cells. And you say, ooh, it looks like a big thing. No, they're so tiny that they're almost infinitesimally small. And they're only one cell. It's just one cell. But it has DNA in here. You see, this is the nucleic DNA. This thing. Now, what does that DNA do? It says, I'm going to be a certain bacteria, and what my job in life is to create these ribosomes, these little balls. And those balls get squirted out all over the place. And I think those might be the balls that we're seeing in those layers of tissue. I don't know. But I can tell you what, inside of that ball is the most elegant chemistry you ever saw. Now, they have flagellas, most of them. And they zip, zip, zip. These things turn thousands of RPMs a second. It's unbelievable. Zip, 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 zip. And then they just squirt out these balls to invade, to kill the invaders. That's the way I'm seeing it. And again, research, we're trying to understand this. All right, this is kind of a detail you don't have to really know that much about, but there's 20 different amino acids, and every one of them has a molecular signature which attaches to other ones in certain ways, and they end up forming these polypeptide chains. Now, every enzyme and so forth, every protein consists of a number of these. It depends. There might be 10, there might be 1,000. There's all different sizes. And what they do is they make up these ribosomes, which the ribosome is the enzyme. So here's what's going on. These things come through here and they get programmed. This is where you have your messenger RNA and you have your transcription RNA and so forth. And what it ends up is making that ball. This comes through and programs it according to the messenger RNA, and the program is now encoded in this, and what that is an enzyme. So it's not, and it is nothing more than a program. That's all it is, 100% program. All right, so we saw the bacteria squirting out that little ball, which is this ball, and here's what happens to the enzymes and the proteins. They're the same thing. An enzyme and a protein is the same thing, except a protein builds things, puts things together. An enzyme breaks things down, basically. Think of it that way. These are those balls, the ribosomes, and they either floating around or just waiting around for some activator. I'm not sure of that right now, whether they cut, but I'm seeing all those balls just floating around in the interstitium. I don't know. Are they just waiting and they're ready to go, like bombs to go off? And when they get hit by some, they unsheath and they turn into these. This is what happens. They just, and then what's inside of there is this, a big long chain of stuff like this. And when it comes out of the sheath that unwraps around it, this is what comes out, and it goes, and that's it. From then on, that's going to be that enzyme, and it's going to have to be identical to this every single time. And there's thousands of particles here, and there's 20 different amino acids. So the program code can be just unbelievable, because we're working with ones and zeros. This is a 0 or a 1. These got 20 different codes that they're working on their program, and they've got, well, here's what the enzyme looks like. So it's not some minor little thing. This is what these things look like. Every one of these little tips is basically a magnetic signature. And these enzymes do what's called click chemistry. So what happens is this enzyme comes up, and it's all configured like this. I mean, they are exotic as hell. And it's either being told to go attack something, or it just sniffs it out. I guess there is 2 different types of bacteria they've discovered for sure, and one of them is sniffs around and it doesn't do much, and the other one does all the work basically. So whatever happens here, once this thing turns into this enzyme, if it finds the thing that it wants to break down or kill, it just gets up to it and it sniffs around a little bit and says, ooh, I see a magnet. Ooh, there's one over there. Ooh, that's the guy. Bam. They all die at once. That's called click. And I mean, it's just instantaneous. Catalysts are just spectacularly fast. Millions of interactions per second, where they normally would take years to do if they were left on their own accord, which they would do it eventually, but it would be years later. It's catalysts, you cannot exist without enzymes, which are created by bacteria. So if you don't have the good bacteria, you're in trouble, because they produce the enzymes, which are these. And if you don't have those, you don't get the chemistry. That is a chemistry set that breaks things up or kills things or constructs things. It could be a protein. There's proteins, enzymes, basically an identical thing, but one of them has a program in it that says, I'm going to make things, and this has a program that says, I'm going to break things. Okay, so these could very well be those ribosome balls, and these apparently are the invading bacteria. Now, if they can send these little tentacles down inside to your good flesh through this basement layer, I believe this is the basement layer, and if they can get through these guys, they're not there. These ribosomes aren't there because the bacteria wasn't there to create them. They just go right down and attach through there, and this is what it looks like when they do that, right here. Right? There's no balls to stop them. They go right through. I'm sure this is an artist's rendition of it, but it's basically what it is. The little tentacles just go right down into your good flesh, and then you start a tumor. And it's because you don't have enough of these balls to attack back. And they're getting through here and start growing in your good flesh down below. This is tiny. See this here? This is not as close up as this. This little bullet is right there. That's that bullet right there. And then you got all these balls underneath. That's all that. And then you got all that interstitial fluid where it's supposed to be able to attack things here. But if you don't have the right bacteria, you're not going to have the right enzyme. So some of these are going to be missing that are needed to stop the invaders that are coming layer by layer by layer by layer by layer by layer by layer, you're in trouble. Once it goes into here, it's all over. Unless you can stop it. Now, how do you stop it? That's the key. Do you need heavy-duty antibiotics? Because that's a biotic little thing that's invading. It's biology, and it's invading biology. So you need something that's an antibiotic floating through here that will kill that. But you have good bacteria that's all over the place in here, and those two are going to be exposed to that deadly environment. Now, how many are you going to lose? I don't know. Can your body recreate them? Because they will repopulate themselves with no problem if you have enough of them. But a lot of people's bacteria is already weak, and once you assault it again, then you get real trouble. And I think that's a lot of it right now is people's, well, I'm telling you right now, I can't, in the research, if you don't break through this layer, you don't get invaded. That's your membranes. These are your membranes. It says, stay out, stay out, stay out, stay out, stay out. And if you keep coming, I'm going to send guys out here to kill you. Get the hell out of here. And they say, oh, no, we're coming. And it keeps coming. And they say, okay, guys, get ready. Go out and get them. He said, get Bobby and Billy over there and go out there and kill them. He said, well, Bobby and Billy are dead. So what happened to Bobby and Billy? Oh, the guy had a root canal, and they gave him some antibiotics to kill any bacteria, and it killed Bobby and Billy. So I don't know. I told him, well, what are we going to do? He said, well, try some other guys. And then that's when you get all the inflammation, because you're not dealing with it correctly. You're not really dealing. Then you get inflammation, and they call it cytokine storms, because your whole body starts to get inflamed in these areas that are being attacked, because you don't have the things to fight back against them. So you start throwing everything you have at it, and it creates a lot of trauma in that area. But if you have the right bacteria, it goes away just like that. Well, you know what I mean. The right bacteria will do the job, and you will not get infected. And this is why we have to get this bacterial database very, very quickly, because the little kids, especially the little kids, they have no immune system to start with. They have no bacteria. They have to get that bacteria from their environment. And a lot of people's environments are, first of all, they're bad. Secondly, a lot of medical intervention in the beginning. They even give pregnant women antibiotics intravenously, as the baby's still in that blood system. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on that we need to understand the bacteria. Because once the bacteria does its job, the digestion is correct, and the attackers are met with troops to say, no, you're not coming through here. But once they get through, that's when you're in trouble. Okay, so this is Dr. Berg, and he's going to be talking about ways to reduce your risk of cancer. Again, this is not me. This is him speaking. He's a qualified doctor, so I believe he's okay to speak about this. I do the research. I am using him as a research resource. So these are not my words. This is him. And this is Dr. Berg, and he's going to just explain. Let's listen to what he has to say. Here he goes.
Today we're going to talk about 4 really, really powerful, important things to help you lower your risk for cancer. And I think the most important thing is to understand what cancer is and how it became cancer in the first place. Cancer.
Okay, this is what I spoke about, cancer. And let's listen to what he has to say. All right, hold on. Okay, so this is Dr. Berg again. These are his words, not mine. And this is, again, research. And he's doing good research. I like the way he thinks. So you have to understand the basics before you can start saying, oh, take this and take that. And I never, ever, ever say take this or take that. Here he goes.
Today we're going to talk about 4 really, really powerful, important things to help you lower your risk for cancer. But I think the most important thing is to understand what cancer is and how it became cancer in the first place. Cancer originates from normal cells. So in other words, they're not just something like a virus that just comes from something external. It comes from within. In other words, there's something that happens in your environment that creates destruction of a part of your cell.
All right, before he goes any further, again, they're normal cells, and they become infected by something. The only way you can infect them is to break through the membrane. So I go with the membrane. Let's go back a little back here again, and he's going to I'll let him just make his claim again. Here we go.
Comes from something external. It comes from within. In other words, there's something that happens in your environment that creates destruction of a part of your cell called the mitochondria. And because the mitochondria has one really important function of producing energy for your body, when that cell no longer gets the energy, it has a backup program. So cancer really is an adaptation to a different energy source because the mitochondria is no longer providing energy. And all this information I'm going to share with you right now comes from a fascinating paper, and I'm going to put that information below in the description.
All right, let me just make my comment. Now, he is saying that, if I'm taking this correct, he's saying that the mitochondria is the source of cancer. Now, I don't know if that's right or not, that I took the correct take on what he's saying. But again, the research to me indicates a membrane invasion. Now, the mitochondria actually has two membranes, which is, well, everything in your body has a membrane. Even your red blood cells have membranes around them. So everything can get, because you can get blood cancer too. They can, if your membrane is not coated with the correct bacteria and enzymes, you will get penetrated. Blood cancer, bone cancer, skin cancer, every cancer there is, 200 or more types of cancers. And that's because there's hundreds of different types of coatings around different organs, and like your skin and your eyeballs and everything else. They're all different. And if you don't have the right bacteria living there to create the enzymes to stop the invasion, you're at risk. That's called chronic disease. As you start to get attacked more and more by something and you don't have a strong enough response to it, it will get into you and then you become sick. And that's what chronic illness is all about. It's just not the ability to overcome the invaders. And that to me is enzymes. And that to me is bacteria. All right, so let's just take this one more time. He's saying that it's your cells are normal, and then something happens and they get destroyed. And he's going with mitochondria. Now, I say what happens here is the membrane that surrounds it and says nobody can come in here unless I let you in. That membrane doesn't work. And then some bad guy gets in your body from how, I don't know, it could be something you ate or whatever. You got poked in your skin or whatever, and it's floating around in here, and it sees there's nobody to stop him. And it starts growing in there. And then you see what I showed you before. So I don't necessarily say that it has to be mitochondria. I say every single cell in your body is a target if it's not being protected by the enzymes. That's my take on it. Okay, so let's go back to the mitochondria. He's talking about mitochondria.
Mitochondria has one really important function of producing energy for your body. When that cell no longer gets the energy, it has a backup program. So cancer really is an adaptation to a different energy source because the mitochondria is no longer providing energy. And all this information I'm going to share with you right now comes from a fascinating paper, and I'm going to put that information below in the description. So normally the cell uses this type of metabolism to get its energy. When it converts over into a cancer, it uses this type of energy right here. It's not important to know the technical names. All you need to know is that cancer's metabolism is a different type of metabolism. And I will mention one thing, which is the Warburg effect, which allows cancer to get its fuel from a different thing. The actual source of mitochondria in our cells really originated from a bacteria. In other words, the mitochondria has all the properties of some bacteria that...
See, here he goes. The mitochondria literally is bacteria. I agree with this. And it has two cell walls. And I'll show you about mitochondria in a minute, but let's just have what he say. Because he's going into the bacteria, which mitochondria really is bacteria.
The mitochondria has all the properties of some bacteria that long ago came into our cells, and somehow there was an agreement that it would work together and it would provide a certain function in the cell, which is producing energy and many other things And the cell.
All right, let me just make a mention. The reason it's producing energy is it has some bacteria in there that is producing the enzymes to break down whatever the sugars or whatever it is to produce the energy. And that's what it's all about, is having the correct enzymes, in my opinion. So don't forget, he's saying, I know I keep going back and forth with this, but it's critical to understand the difference between all these different little statements that are being made. So here goes again.
Work together, and it would provide a certain function in the cell, which is producing energy and many other things. And the cell would provide a home to the mitochondria. And apparently, one of the ancient programs in the mitochondria was this type of energy system. When there seems to be a lot of stress or damage within this system, it converts over to that system. We call that cancer. But
all right, when he says stress or damage, to me, it's the membrane is being invaded. It's not being able to suppress the attacks. Okay, listen to this. He's talking about mitochondria, and they are membrane-bound organelles. These are in the membranes that I'm talking about, which are the layer of the interstitium, which is the fluid-filled highway. So yes, I agree, mitochondria are going to be one of the very important components in that fluid. But mitochondria is if it was going bad, why wouldn't it do your whole body go bad at the same time? Why would you have specific cancers? I say that it's more than mitochondria. This may give you the power to run your body. Yes, I can go along with that. But it doesn't protect you from invasion, I don't think. That's what the research indicates to me. But they are the power plants of the cell. Okay, let's listen to what he has to say about the mitochondria again. And I'm not trying to poke holes in anything. I'm just trying to, I'm not sure that he understands the amount of bacteria and amount of enzymes that are created within these cells. And if this mitochondria is doing all of that stuff, I'd be very, very surprised. But let's see what he has to say. I'll comment as he's making comments. Okay, so here he goes.
The mitochondria has all the properties of some bacteria that long ago came into our cells, and somehow there was an agreement that it would work together, and it would provide a certain function in the cell, which is producing energy and many other things. And the cell would provide a home to the mitochondria. And apparently, one of the ancient programs in the mitochondria was this type of energy system. When there seems to be a lot of stress or damage within this system, it converts over to that system. We call that cancer. But
that's where I'm not going with this, is stress and so forth. I believe if it's mitochondrial cancer, which I don't even know if that's a type of cancer, but if it's invading the mitochondria doesn't have the correct bacteria in its layers, because it has a double membrane as well. So if the mitochondria is being damaged, I would say as well, in my way of thinking, it would be because of the membrane that surrounds the mitochondria.
The mitochondria is not just about producing energy. It also helps you balance and metabolize iron and calcium and make hormones and make neurotransmitters and make melatonin, which is
and again, I think maybe I mentioned this before, that's a lot of things to make. And normally bacteria, which as far as I'm concerned, he did say it qualifies almost like a bacteria, but they put it in a different category. It is probably, it's most of its job, at least, is to create the energy. Yes, I go along with that 100%. But all of these other things, that even gut microbes and everything, it does not control that stuff, I don't think.
It's all about sleep. There's a lot of crosstalk between the mitochondria and the circadian clock in your body that run the different cycles, including the sleep cycles, and gut microbes and immune cells.
All right, so here we go. In the gut microbes and immune cells, yes, there can be a lot of crosstalk between the mitochondria. That I can go along with. But normally your immune cells are the things that create the enzymes, and they have to be loaded with the bacteria.
Cells. So your mitochondria does a lot. The mitochondria is really the pivot point between health and disease. And when the
All right, let me make another point. I would say it's the pivot point between chronic weakness and just being tired all the time. And of course, that's going to lead to all kinds of other issues. It's a downward spiral if you lose your energy. Yes, absolutely. So, but I don't think that's the source of the cancer. All right, I think the mitochondria is being invaded and being damaged, so it can't do its job of creating the energy. So then everything downstream from that is affected. So I don't think the mitochondria itself causes the cancer. It's just that everything else is affected because you can't energize. You're not energetic. You can't do this. You can't do that, and you just get tired and you just fade away.
Mitochondria becomes damaged and that cell turns into a cancer cell, some interesting things occur. First of all, that cancer cell becomes immortal. So it loses...
All right, now let me speak about this. The cancer cell itself has got immortality, let's say, because it's not within a system that knows how to recognize it and kill it, basically. Because you can become immune to cancer. That's what all this immune therapy is all about, is trying to put something in you that will recognize the cancers and say, we don't want these things, kill them. So a lot of these cancers have some way of disguising themselves as saying, we're okay, don't bother us, we're okay, we're doing just what we're supposed to do. And then they just keep invading. But they can't feed on you until they get down inside of you. That's what it appears to me. You see them, they're going down inside the tissues. Literally, this is cancer cells growing down inside of you and taking over your tissue. But if you had the guys that say, no, you can't get in here, and they killed them, you're safe. All right, so he's talking about the cancers coming in and taking over.
Any type of program to die. The cancer cell also produces inflammation, and it seems to grow and spread into areas of inflammation, including old injuries. The other
now, it will attack areas that don't have the correct enzymes and bacteria in their interstitium, because it's floating through the fluid-filled highway just like everything else is. It's traveling around. It's looking for places to attack, but it will attack like old injuries he's talking about. Probably that could very well be because they probably didn't have the correct enzymes at that point in time and somehow became basically healed, but they're still weak in that area. It's already been semi-invaded, and they will reattack that area. That's possible.
Unique thing about when this normal cell turns into a cancer cell is it now has a certain advantage where it can resist death, okay? Because normally our cells, when they become damaged, they go through this thing called apoptosis, where they commit suicide and they take themselves out.
Well, again, I think I talked about this, but the apoptosis is a chemical release that triggers a bacteria to come and eat that cell, eat that bad bacteria, bad cancerous. It triggers a chemistry from the dying cell that says, hey, I'm dying, come over here and eat me up and get me out of here. And that's what happens. A bacteria comes over, grabs a hold of it, eats it up, carries it to the lymph node, drops it off. And then the lymph node has all kinds of chemistry in it, and it eats up all of the toxins and things. That's your lymphatic system. It eats up all of that bad stuff, and then it pumps it out through your excretory system. So here we go again.
But not cancer cells. They resist this apoptosis. They resist also the growth of tumors.
Well, the reason they resist apoptosis is because they're not programmed the way the rest of your body is to react. That could be, I'm just fluffing that up. Maybe they are immortal. He's saying they're immortal. That could very well be. I don't know for a fact one way or the other. But they're not part of our body chemistry, so as far as apoptosis goes, they don't send off any signal that would tell a bacteria to come and eat them up, I guess. So they just keep going and going.
Suppressor cells. So in our bodies, we have the ability to suppress tumors. Apparently, cancer resists that. So that's kind of a survival mechanism. It also counters the immune attack on itself. So I wanted to give you a little background because in order to reduce your risk of getting cancer, it's really about reducing your risk of developing damage to the mitochondria. Okay, and then
again, I sort of disagree with that. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just saying that mitochondria is, yes, you don't want to damage that, but I don't believe it is the source of cancer.
What can you do to restore the mitochondria? That should be the focus. Cancer is just a name of something, but to really understand what's happening can give you an understanding of how to undo this, because reducing the risk means we need to figure out how to reverse this process right here. All right, so one big risk factor for cancer is excess food and excess glucose. So by eating a lot of food and very often and sugary food, that puts you at a major risk for getting cancer. And so the opposite of that is fasting. So fasting is one of the most powerful things that you can do to prevent cancer. And I'm talking about intermittent fasting as well as periodic prolonged fasting, okay?
Okay, I'm going to let you come up and watch this yourself. It's about half done, and he's going to be talking about sort of lifestyle changes, I believe. I, again, say that cancer is an invasion of the membrane, and every membrane in your body houses different chemistry, and every membrane is different, and every membrane is patrolled by different types of bacteria. They live specifically in that membrane, specifically, and if you get invaded in that membrane because that specific bacteria and that specific enzyme is missing, then that particular organ becomes a cancer. It's going to have tumors growing right through that interstitium layer. And that's my claim. So all of this other stuff is very good, and I'm sure he's right on virtually everything here. However, I say the source of cancer is an invasion of these membranes, and the only way that membrane can be maintained is the bacteria, because they create the enzymes. Okay, I am going to leave it at this, but he's going to make a statement that applies exactly to me. Now, he's got 11 million subscribers. He's getting a ton of hits, so it's not like he's being very suppressed. I am being totally suppressed, but listen to what he has to say.
And I will see you on the other side. Now, because of the censoring and the suppressing of the algorithms on YouTube, it's becoming more difficult to find my content. And there's a lot of content that I cannot put on YouTube, unfortunately. So to make sure you have full access of all my information, go to drberg.com and subscribe.
All right, I'm just going to, you should follow this guy if you want to. It's up to you. But he's in the same boat as everybody now. If you don't say what they want you to say, they can suppress you. Now, I am in the algorithm that says don't let anybody see this stuff, basically, other than people that come searching for me, and you can't find my stuff. Same thing with him. He says he can't even get found. So, and I am the same way now, and I have a lot of people telling me they're being unsubbed and they're also not getting notifications. And I found that a lot of my stuff where you put tags and the names to the tags, I go back and look, they're all gone. So there is no tag to them. You just have to come look for me as a person. Mudfossil University on YouTube, Mudfossil, and it's all one word, Mudfossil University. And everybody's getting in the same boat. And I'm surprised they let him make these statements about this can help you and this can help you and so forth, because they warned me against it, and I know enough not to say it. And I'm going to tell you right now, everything I do is research. There is no recommendation whatsoever to do anything for your health. I am just talking about invasions and how disease appears to spread and why do certain cancers happen. It's not like your whole body gets cancer. They're always very specific, and the only thing I know that's specific is the membranes, and every cancer appears to break through a membrane and become a chronically a chronic disease where it just continues to infect, and when they grow real big, they just take over the whole organ and you die. So what is the solution? I don't know. I don't have a solution. I'm a researcher. Okay, so again, my claim is that it's related to the specific tissue, the interstitium and fascia that wraps each organ, and even like bones. You see, this is a bone cancer. The membrane that protected this from invasion it doesn't work. And then something grew into there and created all these spiky looking things growing out of there. And that's what invasion is. It's this kind of stuff. And they start growing, and you can't stop them because your body doesn't have the chemistry and the enzymes to go and kill them. Once they break through that layer, it's all over. And a lot of people they don't get sick they can be affected by the exact same thing as the next guy. One guy gets sick, one guy doesn't. Why? One guy's got the bacteria in here to say, you can't come in here. You're not allowed. And the other guy doesn't have it, or he has it so weak that this sort of wiggles its way in and starts to take over. And there's slow progressing cancer in some people, and the same person, the same cancer in another guy who just take off like a racehorse. And it depends on how bad you are in this layer and how much you can push back against that cancer. And it will. And if you don't have it in this one area, it's not going to be basically in anywhere in your body. That's why lymph nodes, they get lymph cancer, and one node gets affected, and then later another one does, and another one, because you don't have this. You're missing the lymph node interstitium layer bacteria. All right, so it's not like it's moving from one to the next. This is indication of research. In my way of thinking, if you don't have that layer here to coat your lymph node and it gets invaded, the lymph node down the street is not going to have that either, because it's all one layer. It's all one fluid-filled highway. So if this guy doesn't have it, the guy down the street's not going to have it. So that's why the cancer travels in skin cancer and in your lymph nodes and so forth. And other cancers just continually invade organs, but they can go invade over here, and then the next day they start over here, because you're missing it everywhere. So that's my take on cancerous invasions. And again, we're going to have a meeting in another couple hours with people from overseas that are going to try to do some interventions, hopefully. But before we can do any intervention with these bacteria, we need to know what is the correct amount of bacteria and where does it reside and who's healthy and who's unhealthy. But you need a pretty good sized database to do this. So we're trying to set this up. And this is what it's going to be about today. It's going to be a Zoom meeting, and we're going to discuss how we can possibly create a large database. And with the little kids, the little ones, because they don't have any immune system to start, nothing, zero. And it just has to grow. And if they don't get the right stuff, or they're being attacked by some kind of bad bacteria or some water source or whatever it is, I don't care what it is, if we can find out really what's in their poop, because it comes out of your digestive system, almost all the bacteria in your body. If you can get a good digestive system working and your poop is perfect every day, and you just keep going, you're not going to get sick, basically, because you're digesting correctly. You have the correct bacteria. I can't say you're never going to get sick, but you've got a lot more possibility of staying healthy, because that bacteria is creating enzymes, it's digesting your food correctly, so you're getting the nutrition you need. Secondly, it's got the bacteria that live in that lining, and they just continue to grow. They repopulate themselves. So once you're there with it and you have the good stuff there, it should repopulate itself. Now, if you get it so weak that there's just a very small number of them, it's not going to be effective. They have to be, there's a certain number that your body will know to create of a certain type of enzyme, bacteria, to fight off the other bacteria, because there's always going to be a standoff between two bacteria, basically, in my mind. There's going to be an invader, and there's going to be you don't invade here guy. It's going to be a protector. So I'm going to leave it at that for today. But I think we really need to look much, much deeper into this interstitium function. Now, they know it's a new organ, but they don't know what its function is that I can determine, because they don't understand the interstitium, the bacteria that lives in here. It is a new organ. I'll go along with that. They never knew it was here before. But what is its function? That's the key. And right now they call it a fluid-filled highway. Well, what does that mean? And this is, I believe, your lymph all flows through here too. And the lymph is where all of the bad stuff is. And the bacteria that's living here is supposed to kill the stuff that's in the lymph. That's what it's all about. And then it's supposed to bring it over to your lymph nodes where it finishes off the process, and then out it goes. So I love you all, and hopefully today will be the start of something big. I'm really hoping. And whoever does this is going to be a hero, because right away, almost instantly, there should be some understanding of what bacteria causes what. It's just a simple process of just taking all kinds of different people, sick ones, healthy ones, different races, different backgrounds, different geographic areas, and then seeing what bacteria lives in them. And then when you see this guy's got cancer, this guy, nobody over here that has this stuff and ever gets cancer. Well, obviously, we need to look at that. And that's the kind of stuff you draw from a database. So today is database day. All right, I love you all. Let's see what we can get done. I'm going to be keeping you very well closely informed about this. And I'm hoping that some doctors will pay attention to this, because, again, in the medical industry, just like anything else, if something is new, it's scary because you can get sued. You know, if you do something to saying, oh, well, I do this, and I, give somebody advice, and then they say all of a sudden they find out it wasn't right, and you're outside the borders, because this just happened in 2018. So they're not paying much attention to this right now. I can guarantee you that. I know that for a fact, because I have found very, very few that even understand what it's all about, or even know about it. So things travel slowly. Once a person gets into their position, they either they're really an excited person and wants to understand everything, or they just feel satisfied with their knowledge and they just go about their life. And you can't get attacked that way. If you're just perfectly happy, deluded, whatever happens, you just don't care. You just say, okay, it's okay. I've been told what I have to say, and nobody's going to bother me. Nobody's ever going to put me in jail for saying this. These guys get down in Texas that wants this woman to have an abortion. There's no possibility that the fetus will survive, and it could create her to become sterile or even cause her death. And they say, no, you can't do this. That's insanity. Absolute insanity. They should be ashamed of themselves. Put this poor woman in that position. And this is the kind of forced thinking that we have now. And everybody's starting to stand up about it. Just like Dr. Berg says, he's being silenced. Everybody's being silenced. Nobody's been more silenced than me. Because the stuff I've discovered blows up everything. It blows up the whole nightmare. It's a nightmare for these people. But I go with truth. All right? Once again, I still love you. All right? And I'll be talking to you soon. Don't worry.